Good morning, good evening, and good night to everyone out there on the internet, whether you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube. This is Lancing with myself with Steve D from Tin Star Games, the weekly 5-minute show where I talk about being a freelance creator and game designer when you're low on spoons and low on cash. And boy, are we low on spoons and low on cash in this terrible COVID state of play. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I just sending love and hope to all of you out there as we may be going into second lockdown or worse things in your country. Hope and strength to you all, but what I want to talk to you about is, of course, related to that because everything seems to take forever. This is the longest year in living memory, but the reason it's long is because it's got a lot of stages to go through and things keep changing, and it's emblematic, perhaps, of the fact that making games and getting them all the way from that very first position to that published state on the shelf is an incredibly long and exhaustive process. Right now, I am in the process of getting Relics books to backers, and that sounds like a simple thing. I thought it would take me like a month and a half. It's taken me 2.5 months now, and we're still waiting to get some of the books out to Americans, just because turning these large cogwheels with a very small company takes a long time. It takes a long time to put the things in the boxes and send them to the right people and get the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And it's been a very long process. It's taken longer than I thought it ever would. I added, a year or two at the start, and it's still taken me a bit longer than that. And it is exhausting that it takes this long. I am an impatient person. Let's put it that way. I am very impatient. I am always looking to the future. I'm always waiting for the next thing because I'm feeling burdened by the thing I want to do now. I'm anxious. I'm like, next thing, next thing, next thing. What's next? I want to do it. And sometimes I'm like, God, why isn't this part over? Why do I have to keep going back and doing this bit and this bit and this bit? Because it's a long process and it takes longer than you think, and you can't be that impatient. You have to slow down and go, well, this is how long it takes. This is how long it takes. Everything takes forever, and it's true of almost every kind of creative process. There are some art forms, like writing is pretty good in this thing, is that it doesn't take that long to write a book if you're able to carve off, enough for a year. And it doesn't take that long to print a book because it's just words. But game design is much more long and complex than that. It requires a lot more development and testing and production and all those kind of things. We talked about post-production and pre-production last time. There's a huge amount of steps that go from, wherever you think it might finish to actually being finished. And then there's still more and still more and still more. Films is probably a better analogy, but even they, if you have enough money, you can make a film in a year, but it might take you 4 or 5 or 6 years, to get these things out. It's in a long, exhaustive process, and it's going to take a lot longer than you think, and it's going to just feel like it takes forever. But what can we do about that? The answer is just to be patient, to understand that it takes that long time. Don't be someone, or try not to be someone who goes into the industry with written a game, get it out there. I am like that. That's why I make these little tiny games that go on postcards and tweets, because I want to go, boom, here it is, take it. And you can do some of those things. But the bigger the game, the larger the scope, the bigger the audience, the more money being spent, the longer it takes. So you have to find a way to get rid of that impatience, to go, my game's coming out is a long, long process. And it's going to feel like it's taking forever and is so slow. And every day you turn on the internet, you'll see another 6 million games coming out, and maybe people are being a lot more prolific than you, but mostly it's just that there is so much news these days. So you're seeing every single game come out, and what you're missing is the years of work it took to get to that point. So the message for today really is trying to let go of your impatience. It will take a while to get your work out there. It'll take a while for it to land in someone's hands. It may take several years, and there may be still people out there in 3 or 4 years, hopefully, if you're not completely ignored, who are just going to find your game and find something out of it. It might be 10 years, it might be 20 years. If you can sit there on a shelf or be in a library or just be passed around, you might turn up in a second-hand store or be found on someone's shelf. That's why we print and publish. That's why we put things on the internet and try to keep them up there, because there isn't really an expiration date on art. The person who needs you might not be born yet, But there's going to be someone out there who's going to find it and fall in love with it in 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20, 25, 50 years if possible. If you can stick around on a shelf and not collapse, you know, if you can stay on a website. Art isn't about the now. As much as we are impatient to rip our hearts out and show it to the world, the person out there who needs it is going to find it when they can. And that's the sort of grace of eternity and exhaustion. Even though it takes forever, it lasts forever if you're lucky. So that's how I hang on to my impatience. I know that there's going to be someone out there in a year who's going to find relics for the first time, even though I'm now exhausted, or in 5 years maybe if I'm really lucky. So I can wait for them, and I can think about that and try not to be so impatient. But God, it does take forever. So mostly that's just me reaching out and saying, you know, it's okay to go, oh, it takes so long. It does. Be ready for it. It's the nature of games. They take a while to become full and ready to birth, you know. It's going to take you a long time. And that means playtesting and just working. Have a look at Drift, which is coming out soon. I've been watching James producing that game for so many years now, and he loves it and is so passionate for it. And it's finally leaking its way towards Kickstarter, but it's got so much more to go. And what I admire about James in his process is just his sincere dedication to that one game. And that's why it's going to be so great. Gaming is a marathon, whether that's making lots of little games, but it's also a marathon on working on a single game. And what's going to serve you best is that kind of endurance. So be ready to believe in your game, to play it over and over again, and to follow it hard, because this is a long, long ride. And yeah, talk about that in the comments. Share your strategies for getting through the long ride. And especially if you're, of course, disabled and can't work nearly as fast or as hard as you'd like. Till next time, hang in there, keep going through the long road, and I'll see you next time. Be good, play games, pat dogs, have fun.